Welcome to Wealth Matters Podcast. I am with Michael Osterhoff today, and we are going to talk about senior housing. Mike brings over 20 years of legal experience, and over decade specifically in the healthcare space. Mike has been general counsel and chief legal advisor to a number of healthcare companies. Now, Mike is focused on the development of senior living facilities in the commercial real estate sector and advising startup companies. He is currently involved in the development of Meadowview of Johnston in Johnston, Iowa, and the villas at Stony Point in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Mike is also an investor in a number of other real estate projects around the country. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Alpesh. I appreciate it.
I hope I covered everything from my bio.
You did a great job. Hopefully, the listeners are still tuned in.
Oh yeah, we will try to keep them on, right?
Anytime they start hearing bios from lawyers, it can quickly put them to sleep.
So, and that reminded me of a book by Mark Kohler, who is my CPA. Lawyers are liars.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that's only a few instances and not here, but yeah, I had certainly heard that one before.
I thought, I'll just remind you.
Thank you.
Hey, so Mike, tell us something interesting about yourself, which we don't know.
Yeah, interesting about me, right? I moved from the legal world as a partner at a large law firm downtown Chicago for many, many years. Became general counsel. Now I'm developing senior housing. But I think what's more interesting is my wife, Kay, and I are part of a blended family. And as of a few days ago, our youngest turned 13, which means we now have 6 teenagers, 13, 14, 15,
wow.
16, 17, and 18 in the family.
Yeah, I feel for you, man.
During a lockdown, it gets very interesting. There's some awesome moments that I will never forget, and there's other moments I wouldn't mind forgetting, but still thankful for both.
Yeah, no, and I'm still a little bit away from that. My oldest is 10, so yeah, couple more or 3 years to go.
It's coming. It's coming fast.
Yes. So why did you choose to be in real estate? You are an attorney, general counsel to real estate.
Yeah, really the attraction was, being a passive investor, having that regular income from properties was very attractive to me. As an attorney, it's just in a huge amount of time, right? We have to bill hours, and you can't get more time back. So I wanted to try and capture time going forward. And so that was really the impetus for it, was to begin investing in real estate so I could generate passive income. And then I had the opportunity to switch over from being a full-time general counsel to a healthcare company into development. And it really is a passion of mine. I've got a passion for seniors and developing great projects for them. At the same time, taking care of our investors going forward. So that's how it's a long-winded way of saying that's how I got into real estate. I really want to be able to spend more time with family and spend more time in some of the ministries I support.
Right. So what was your very first real estate investment or a deal?
Yeah, my first one, which was a bit of a disaster, but probably not my worst one ever, was a fix and flip in downtown Chicago.
Oh, wow.
So I'm an attorney. It's, 10, 12 years ago. And we bought a 3-flat in the Loop area, which is a nice area of Chicago, and decided to deconstruct it into a single family. Single families were booming back then. We finished the project in 2008.
Oh my God. I know where this is going.
Yes, you do. Needless to say, it took us about 2 years to finally sell the property.
Wow.
Made a little bit of money, but compared to the time, effort, and pain.
And the carrying costs and everything. Yeah, I know.
Yes, exactly.
But that's good start though, right? Because not from perspective of just losing money or not making anything, but learning a lot from it, right? So my first investment, and I always talk about it, that it was a disaster. I lost over 30 grand. but I learned a lot from it, and then I decided not to, I decided to continue. I didn't back off, right? So yeah, I'm glad that, or I think you would have learned really good lessons out of it.
Yeah, tremendous lessons. Although I was not as intelligent as you, you kept pushing forward. I did not. It took me a little time to get back into it again, but thankful that I did, for sure.
Yes, no, that's awesome. So, how and why did you pick senior housing? And just a caveat that we are recording this on August 7th. We are and personally, Wealth Matters is closing on our first senior housing project, next week on August 14th. So I am, looking forward to senior housing. But how and why did you pick senior housing?
Yeah, likewise for me too. I think I mentioned to you earlier that we've got a closing on Tuesday.
Yes.
That's on our Johnson, Iowa project, so we're very excited about that and looking forward to getting that project closed. For me, it was part of a transition. So I invested in and am invested in several multifamily projects.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also invested with Paul Moore and Wellings Capital.
Yes.
In public storage, and Paul's done a great job.
Yeah, Paul's done a good job. Yes.
Yeah, with that fund, I'm excited to be in there. But with multifamily and looking to potentially develop in that area, I just saw that the cap rates were getting really compressed, right? From 17 to 18, 19.
They're getting crushed.
They're getting crushed, right?
Yeah.
And the value add proposition, which I love, when it works, it was getting to a point where you really had to thread the needle. So I was looking for some other opportunities in the real estate sector, and had the opportunity to meet and get to know some developers, invest in some of their properties, and then decide, hey guys, why don't we come together? Why don't we build a company here and really build a brand? And so that's what we did, and that's what started Meadowview Senior Living.
That's awesome. So, and senior housing, I keep hearing about the silver tsunami. What are the statistics on the silver tsunami?
It's coming. I'm happy to share lots of stats, and I would encourage your viewers and listeners to make sure you do your own homework.
Right.
Dig in, do the diligence, look at the hard data. But the reality is we've got 10,000 plus seniors being added to the U.S. population every day for the next 20 plus years. I mean, those are tremendous numbers, coupled with the fact that I think by about 2035, they're projecting about 80 million seniors in the United States, which would represent about 20% of the population. And that doesn't even count or take into account immigration and other factors like that. So you're looking at a huge population boom amongst seniors. So those are just some of the statistics, and I just don't see that changing anytime soon.
That's awesome. And what was your very first senior housing investment or deal? Right, if you can talk about that one.
Yeah, I wanted to share. First deal was a couple years back, and that's in an assisted living facility that is operational in Cedar Rapids. That went live it was late last year, so we're in ramp up mode right now, and that's steadily beginning to ramp up again. Obviously we had lockdowns and couldn't do tours there for about 90 days. That was almost nationwide, but beginning to ramp up right now. So that's great. That one's taken off, and then we've got several others in our portfolio. 2 in Minnesota. We've got 2 that will be under construction in Iowa, as well as the one outside Cedar Rapids. And then we're looking to build probably 3 to 4 more projects over the next 12 to 18 months.
So why did you choose to develop a new facility versus acquiring an existing one? I'm focused on acquiring an existing one which is already working or maybe not working, so I have all the infrastructure ready to go. But why did you choose to go with developing a new facility?
Yeah, so a little bit it's based on the background of senior housing. So senior housing was historically, there's about 4% development every year. And that continued up to about 2000, 2001. And then it dropped down to about 1% annually until about 2015, 2016-ish. So it was very flat as far as development for many, many years. So what you have is you have facilities, I think almost 50% of senior housing was built pre-2000. And why that matters is because back then they were building facilities that had smaller rooms, lower ceilings, entranceways that weren't 2 stories, and didn't have all the amenities that seniors expect and want today, right? Seniors today, they've been on cruises, they've experienced
Right.
resort-like living, right? So they want pools and spas and movie theaters and ice cream parlors and coffee
Right.
bars and all these things. So facilities back then, they didn't have that, and they weren't built for it. So you'd almost have to completely go down to the studs of an older facility in order to bring it up to today's standards. I think it's just cost prohibitive. So for us, we know exactly what we want to build for our seniors. Our facilities and communities are typically about 100 units-ish
Okay.
size, and it's just very difficult to go back and put together those types of projects.
Right. Right. And what kind of amenities does your facilities offer to seniors?
Yeah. Typically, we bring to the table, like I just said, we'll have movie theaters, we'll have arts and crafts rooms, we'll have small walking trails, a pond, we'll have an indoor pool, spa, we'll have wellness facilities where we'll bring in an instructor. We want to provide our seniors with not just the best living, but also give them the ability to continue living and strengthening themselves.
And does the senior housing also have like, multifamily or resorts type of deal where you compare them to 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, or A, B, C class?
It does. I mean, these are A-class type
Okay.
properties, right? They're going to have all those amenities that, like I said, that seniors would expect from resort style living, for sure.
So when you say A-class property, right, what kind of neighborhood do you choose? Because I saw that the one you picked in Johnston, right, and then there is Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So how
Yeah.
did you choose those states and the neighborhood, keeping in mind that you are going to construct an A-star facility, and if you are going to get this kind of, residents in the facility?
Yeah, so we are looking for, strong neighborhoods. For example, Johnson, Iowa is one of the wealthiest suburbs in all of Iowa. It's just
Okay.
outside Des Moines. It's growing. So you've got your 30, 40 somethings moving in there who want to be close to their parents. They've got strong incomes. They have, on the senior communities, they have a strong wealth profile, if you will, as well. Their residences are paid off. Those are the types of factors we're looking at when we look for a location. And then once we do that type of early due diligence, then we bring in, our analysts to do a full market study, and typically we'll
Right.
do at least 2 market studies to confirm and reconfirm what our early due diligence is showing.
Got it. So for the market studies, do you, you know, go through a website or a tool like in multifamily world, we can look at Yardi metrics or CoStar. Does something like that exist for senior housing?
We use independent third parties
Okay.
who have a ton of experience. One of the benefits of MetaView is that my partner has done market studies in the past. He's done over 500 market studies themselves.
Wow.
So
Okay.
obviously we want an independent market study to be done, but then he can do the deep dive and find the holes, where are issues, and what might present issues in the future. So obviously that's a nice benefit for us to have, is that experience
Got it.
in-house.
So can you talk about some of the gotchas to keep in mind while underwriting a new construction senior housing, right? Because
Yeah,
construction brings its own challenges, right? From
yeah,
ground up titling, entitlement, getting approval from city, whatnot, right? I'm pretty sure.
yeah. That's right. So there's a couple things to keep in mind. One is you're still providing healthcare. So there are healthcare regulations, and that's first and foremost. Is you want to make sure, one, we're working with a contractor who has built over 50 communities in the past. you want to make sure you've got a management team who is solid and is putting together expected expenses and numbers that are reliable and you can go to market with. Again, on the diligence side, right, you have to have, for example, in our next community that we're building, right, we have independent living, assisted living, and memory care. Well, memory care has its own rules and regulations that you have to follow, right? It's got to have locked doors on both sides so that patients can't just walk out. Alarm systems, we put in sensors. We have, special locks within our bathrooms. We're going to have special hold bars and things of that nature. So you really have to have an advanced, experienced team to make sure you don't, make missteps there. And that's not my strength. That's where I rely on my partners and the general contractor to bring that to the table, as well as our architect. Our architect has designed over 100 communities. So it's having that experience, and we talk about this in real estate all the time, right? Who are you surrounding yourself with?
Yes.
And I want to make sure each of those pieces is in place. And if there's a weak link, let's go ahead and fix it.
Right. Real estate is a team sport, right? And we know that.
That's right. Completely.
So, and also because I'm acquiring an existing facility, right, which is already running at like 80% occupancy at 9-10 cap. And once we raise the occupancy, thank you. So once we raise the occupancy, that's our goal to 90%. It would be amazing, right? But so we are able to, start generating cash from day one. How do you underwrite, or how do you make sure, that when you are done with the construction, how do you look at the cash flow, right? What's the distribution structure, etc.? I'm just trying to understand that.
Yeah, for sure. So typically you're looking at about, 15 months from the build, right?
Okay.
So we'll close on Tuesday. We're immediately ready to start breaking ground so we can open in the fall of 2021. Okay. And then it's typically a 12 to 18 month fill up to get to roughly 85% occupancy. I think it's important to know for your viewers and listeners that typically independent living and memory care fill up fastest. Assisted living is usually lower, just because that's more need-based. Memory care is need-based too, but there's such a shortage of beds.
Exactly, yes.
It typically go pretty quickly.
There's a lot more demand, yeah.
Right.
Supply and demand.
That's right. So we build our pro forma off those numbers and those expectations, and making sure that we have sufficient working capital, sufficient contingencies to make sure we get through that hurdle point.
So basically, go ahead. Sorry. No, please go ahead.
Now, typically it's about 70% the break-even point, where we'll start cash flowing, and then once we hit 85%, we're looking at double-digit cash-on-cash returns. We start hitting 99, 95%, and they're very attractive.
Got it. So, so when someone is investing in a new construction, senior housing, or similar projects, you are looking at about 2.5 to 3 years before they start getting cash flow, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. So you have to be prepared and understand this is a longer term investment. Yep. You're not going to get return your money tomorrow.
Right.
But one thing I think to keep in mind is, you'll have, this is in the multifamily space, right? Some of the folks out there will promise immediate returns.
Yes.
They'll deliver, but you have to know it's a 1.5. It's maybe 3%.
Yeah.
The first year you're going to half, and then you get to 8%, which is fine if you understand that. For me, that's not that exciting. I'm looking for the larger returns. I'm willing to wait for those returns to happen. Right. And so is our investor group.
And I'm getting burned by those multifamily deals right now that, they promise, this and that, and you barely see anything, right?
I'm right there with you. Yeah, so. I think I got a couple $100 deposited in my account the other day.
Exactly. It's like $55. I'm like, ooh, no, we are getting somewhere. Right?
Exactly. We're going out tonight.
Yes. What's your marketing plan like? Because once you do a new construction, you pretty much are starting from scratch. So how's your marketing team, and what do you do to attract the right residents?
Yeah, so that's where our management company is so key. And making sure you partner, if this is something that someone wants to do or is looking as an investor, make sure the management team is at top of their game. We partner with a management group that has runs over 55 communities. So they've got policies and procedures in place pretty much from day one. So when we decide to begin marketing, which is typically in the 6 to 12 months before opening, we're going to begin with Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads. We're going to be looking at Google SEO. We'll do some targeted marketing to the local community. And then it's also built on the relationships that they have with local hospitals, doctors, other community centers that are at capacity and have overflow. We want to build those relationships. So it's really a multifaceted approach, but it's important that you have, again, that marketing team in place to be able to execute on that strategy. My apologies, they're doing the lawn right outside my window.
Oh, no worries. So can you talk about your best deal from real estate perspective?
So I'm going to talk about my best and worst deal.
Yes.
At the same time, it's in the business side, but it's I think very applicable to real estate. So my best deal was investment in a small company in the healthcare side. It did very well and returned a very healthy multiple. And I bring that up because I did my due diligence. I felt good about the market we were entering, the need that was there, the executive team that was in place, and felt very good about that investment going in. Then a few of those same folks started another company. And you again, you know where this is going, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Started another company, asked me to be an investor. I looked at it. I didn't feel comfortable. I saw some red flags, and I had already made the conscious decision. Look, they had already done well in the past, so I'm going to do something. And thankfully, it wasn't at the same level I did before. But I lost that entire investment. And so I say that for the benefit of other folks, because you have to look at every single deal, whether it's business, multifamily, senior housing, real estate, doesn't matter what it is. Look at each deal independently.
Right.
And certainly the principles involved are a key factor, but you've got to crunch the numbers each and every time before making that investment.
That's a great advice. And looking back, I have made the same decision where one of the large multifamily syndicator who did really good and returned like every 2-3 years he would sell the apartment and would have returned 50-60% returns. I ended up investing with him on a student housing, and they are about to lose every penny of the investment. And I realized that even though he may have been good in multifamily, but that does not mean he can execute the same thing in student housing or developing a condo. So as you said, even though the principals may be good, they may know what they're doing, but every deal is different.
It is. And I echo what you just said, because like mine, the principals went into a completely new business area, just like yours went from multifamily to students. They are different. They are different niches, and you really have to fundamentally understand those differences.
Yeah, and now the same syndicator is constructing brand new self-storage, condo development, everything, and I don't know. I think I can see where it is going.
Yeah, exactly right. It's also, I think you want a team that's focused on the ball.
Yes.
You talk about public storage. Would I love to go and develop public storage? Yeah, it sounds exciting, but Paul Moore and his team, they already have great relationships and work with fantastic operators. They should stay in that lane, and we're doing senior housing. We're going to stay in our lane and be successful there. So, and I would say the same thing for multifamily, right? It's important to keep your eye on the ball and not get distracted by all the shiny objects that are out there.
Welcome back to Wealth Matters Podcast. I'm chatting with Mike Osterhoff regarding senior housing. Mike, are you ready for fire round?
Fire Fire away. Let's do it, Apesh.
Okay. Would you be changing any business or investment strategy after coronavirus?
Yeah, so that's interesting for a developer in senior housing. I think my answer is going to probably surprise you and maybe others as well. I was talking to a large fund manager just the other day, talking about supply and demand, and they had projected that supply that demand would exceed supply pretty significantly by 2024 to 25.
Really?
That was kind of their
Okay.
big hurdle where things were really going to start swinging.
Keeping my fingers
Right.
crossed too.
Well, you wait till you hear what I have to say next. So then I talked to him, and he said, "Well, what we have seen during COVID is 50% plus development projects either just disappear or stop altogether."
Right.
So he said, "So we're moving that up to 2022 to 23." So,
Wow.
when I heard that and digging in more and knowing what I know, we want to lean in even more into this process. So we want to do more projects at a quicker pace so that knowing that many projects just stop right now,
Right.
18 months from now, there's going to be a real gap. And
Yes.
we want to be prepared to fill that gap. So our team is really trying to lean into this opportunity and have some senior housing ready for our seniors at that time.
No, that's a great point. On top of that, what I'm learning, and I may be wrong, you may know more about, then, a lot of people or seniors are waiting to go back to nursing homes or assisted living. They're just waiting because of whatever has happened, right? So the facility we are investing in, there is a wait list now, and we are not accepting anyone for last 3-4 months because we are just scared, right? Everyone is scared. So as soon as this thing settles down, there would be another, just from the demand side, right? There are a lot of people waiting.
That's exactly right. And I heard the same thing, that there's significant pent-up demand.
Right.
And I think we're going to see a wave of folks come in the next 90 days or so. And I think that's coupled with the fact that, a lot of seniors during this time are living with their families, right? Well, their families, at some point, they have to leave their family. They have to begin living life again.
Yes.
But that doesn't necessarily minimize the risk for the seniors. And a senior housing is a much safer environment because it's a more closed environment than being in your home where you've got parents and kids going out, running the stores, just doing life. I think that's important.
No, I totally agree. So favorite real estate or finance or any other related book?
So I'm going to give you 3 books, and I'll focus on the third one. So the first one's the Bible. That's my go-to, not exactly a real estate book, but a foundation for loving God and loving other people. And I think that just is a good foundation for folks to have. Next is Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Of
My
course.
guess is
almost every guest recommends.
Every guest says it, so that's why I don't want to settle on the second one. The third one is a little geeky, but I think a critical book, and that's Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright.
Oh, I love it. I love that book.
And I tell you what, if you're an investor, if you're just starting out in real estate, even if you run your own company, you have to do a deep dive. You have to really understand taxes and what the CPAs are doing and how the laws are written for the benefit of those investors in real estate. And having that foundation and thinking about starting your own company, even if you're not doing anything yet, start your own company so that you get that momentum going and you begin to realize some of those benefits. I think it's really important. It's an important read.
So I would take this as the golden nugget of the show, right? Very important. Start your own company so you'll understand, how the businesses are run. And on top of that, you'll be able to take advantage of a lot of the things mentioned in the book, Tax-Free Wealth. By the way, after reading that book about 3 years ago, I started taking tax courses just to learn more about taxes. And I'm an IT engineer. I have no clue about economics, finance. But I was just fascinated, and I learned so much about it that now, and whenever I talk to my CPA, we just rattle off Schedule E, 1040, these, that.
That's great. I might follow your lead on that. I've just been listening to the different tax podcasts, but
it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun, actually.
Tax-Free Wealth, I've probably read at least 3-4 times. And that's the newest version that came out like 18 months ago. So
Yes.
I think it's a really important read. And like you said, I love what you just said too, having people start their own company so that they better understand what their investments might be and are able to read and understand the other businesses because they have experience running their own is invaluable.
I totally agree. Any tool or website you recommend or you can't live without?
I don't really have your podcast. There you go. There's one.
Thank you.
I use QuickBooks. I use different tools, but I wouldn't say there's any one that I just love and thrilled about. So
Awesome.
I leave that to the IT professionals out there for better recommendations.
Right. Any advice for beginner investors?
Yes. For beginner investors, when investing, whether it's in a business or real estate deal, I'll use an example to maybe try and highlight this. Understand whether or not there are multiple avenues of revenue that's being proposed. So here's my example. I had a CEO talking to me, small company, and he said, hey, look, here's this investment. We're going to sell these widgets. We've got 3-4 competitors in the space, and we're going to sell to one of the competitors, and I'm going to return a 30x to you, which is just, ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculous. Right.
So, okay, all right. Well, thanks for sharing. What are the other revenue avenues? What are the other exit opportunities? Because what happens if that competitor decides, I don't want to buy you and I'll just undercut you on price? And
right.
there's no other, there's no response, no other opportunities. So in real estate, what are the different opportunities? So, one avenue is just buy and hold and wait for dividends. And that's okay. That's a revenue source. A second route is to have the real estate do a refinance, return equity to investors, and then hold it and issue dividends to the shareholders, right? Another strategy is buy it, do a refinance, return some equity, hold it for some time, get some dividends, and then do a full sale and exit and return another multiple to your investors. And another strategy that we're using is building a portfolio of properties, right? So we're building a brand, Meadowview Senior Living. We want to have at least 10 different communities in that portfolio. And while each one is individually owned and held, we know there are institutional investors out there, larger companies that will be interested in a strong portfolio. So that's just another opportunity that we might be able to bring additional returns to investors. So that's my advice to beginner investors. Really understand what are their different opportunities for revenue in what the investment might be.
That's great. How do you give back?
How do I give back? Well, that's another reason I got into real estate is, like I said, I wanted to have my time for family and time for ministry. So I support 2 ministries. One's called Potter's House, and they support folks down in Guatemala City, Guatemala. So there's roughly 13,000 people who live and work out of the city dump. So we go down there, we just share the love of God. We provide educational services for kids, training for adults, in just different areas that they might be able to, whether it's, doing hairstyling or whatever, providing healthcare to the community and doing things like that. So that's one ministry. And another one goes to, I go to East Africa each year as well.
Wow.
And we do discipleship training and work with local churches and help empower them to help empower the people. So those are my passions. And, doing real estate, it gives me that time and the economic opportunity to do that. So that's what I love to do.
That's awesome. How can my listeners reach out to you?
You can reach me at mosterhoff@gmail.com, or you can connect to me on LinkedIn at Michael Osterhoff, or look us up at meadowviewseniorliving.com. That's all one word, meadowviewseniorliving.com.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes. Thank you, Mike. I had fun.
Thanks, Alpesh. I appreciate it.
Have a great weekend.
You too.